hope you're all doing well. Decided to add a few more videos on just about how to do some just little contained programs, and we're going to start off today by looking at how you would go about making a quiz which actually pulls all of its questions and answers automatically from a text file. So we've done a few bits on reading from a text file, bits and pieces like that, but this is going to pull everything you know already together and kind of get it into a place where you can do something a little bit more interesting with it. So to start this off, what you're going to need to do is you need a text file. So this is one which I've just created with two questions in. The point of this obviously is that you will be able to add as many questions as you like to this, and the game will just automatically add these questions into your quiz, and then it can just keep going for as long as you need. You don't have to keep on coding each question individually. So let me just explain how this is set out. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. So we can talk through an option for a different way of doing it in a bit, but this is the most basic way I've found, and it kind of has the best results. So starting off, what you want to do is you want to put your question in followed by a comma. So this one is just what year did man first land on the moon? We've got a comma here. Then we've got three options which the user can choose from, A, B and C, and then a comma, and then most importantly here, the answer at the end. Now, between these commas, there can't be any spaces, okay? Especially not this one here at the end. If there's a space here at the end, it means that in order for the user to get the answer right, they'll need to do space and then write their answer. We don't want that to happen. What we want is the user just to write their answer, because they're unlikely to do a space before they write their answer if we give it to them in the correct format. So don't put any spaces after the commas, and then end the line on a comma as well. Now the second one, so this is a number, so that's pretty straightforward. Now the second one here actually will require the user to write in a name. You could obviously change this so it's just A, B or C, so the answer could just be A, B or C. In fact, that might be a bit more straightforward. But for the time being, I'll keep it like this and show you like this, and then you can decide which way you want to do it. Now this one here, when we've got the word Neil, obviously the answer is Neil Armstrong here. My answer here, Neil Armstrong, I've put it all in capital letters. And the reason for that's going to become clear as I show you the code, because basically when the user writes the answer, we're going to automatically take whatever they write, turn it into a capital letter, and then compare it to this. So this all will need to be in capital letters, but it will become more clear in a minute. And at the end, I'll just put end, end, end. This just signifies the last line in the file and for the quiz to stop, so they've got to the end of it. There's a couple of different ways you can do this, but I found that this is more or less the most straightforward way and gets us the best results the quickest. So obviously, any other questions you want to write need to be above this end, end, end. And you've got to make sure no spaces, commas in between each one, and a comma at the end. Also, don't do this and leave like a blank line like that, because that's going to cause you issues. So I've got no blank lines, I've got no extra bits, I've got my question, my multiple choice answers, and then my answer at the end, no space between the answer. I'm going to save that text file again. Right, and now we can actually get on to doing the coding part of it. So I've just gone to idle, and I've gone myself file and new window, and I've got myself a new one here. And then what is important is that this Python file is saved in the same location as that text document. So you can see that's on my desktop. So before I do anything else, I'm going to do save as, and I'm going to make sure it goes into my desktop, and I'm just going to call it quiz. It should automatically save it with .py. Yeah, it does. So there we go. So let's get started with this now. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to open the text file that I've made. So file equals open, and I just give the name of the text file. So my text file is called quiz.txt, and the mode I'm going to open it in is read mode. So that means that basically from Python I can read what's in the file, but I can't edit it, which is what we want. We don't want the user to accidentally delete what we've done or the rest of it. Now once that's actually opened, what I need to do is I need Python to be able to read it. If I don't read it, what you'll end up with is an error which says IO text wrapper. And what that means is that the Python has got the file and it's just reading the container that the file is in. It's not reading the text within that actual file. So contents equals file.readLine. Now readLine is a really interesting piece of code and it's really going to be helpful here. Read would read the entire file and then you'd have to iterate through each line. I find it easier to use the read line function, especially for things like this, because it's going to read us in one line at a time, and then when we call this function in, it will read the next line. So the first time this gets called, it reads question 1, which is here, and the second time it gets called, it reads question 2, which is here. And basically it looks for the next line, and it will go on and on and on until all of the lines are done. So that's why we're going to be using readLine here. Now the final thing we want to do is we want to split that line by its commas. So split line is going to equal our contents dot split. Now if you remember from when we're looking at lists and positions, what split is going to do is it's going to take our line, it's going to basically make it into a list, and it's going to say that the question is at position 0, the multiple choices are at position 1, and the answer is at position 2. So we've got 0, 1 and 2. A bit confusing starting at 0, but kind of all programs index from 0. So let's actually test this to see if it's actually working first of all. So by that logic, split line is going to be the question. Yeah, that's not a bad variable name for it because it is the split line, but something like maybe... No, actually, we'll call it split line because it's not just going to be the question, it's going to be the answer as well. So split line is fine. And then let's just see if it actually works. Split line, let's print out the first one of these. So if we print position 0, we should get the question. Position 1 should be the multiple choice, and position 2 should be the answer. So let's actually just run this and see if it works. Okay, so what's actually happening here is when we said split, we didn't actually tell Python what to split it by, and split will automatically split by spaces. So that's why we've got what year did. So what we want to do is inside this contents.split, we want to tell it to split by the commas. And you can actually put whatever symbol you want between the items you want to split in a text file. Commas are pretty simple ones, but if you're ever using something with commas in, so you've got text with commas in and things like that, so you can't split it by the commas, you could use like an @ symbol or something like that, might make it a bit more straightforward. So let's run this again and see how we get on. So there we go now. Now that I've split it by the comma, I've got my question here, I've got my multiple choice answers here, and I've got my actual answer. So what I could do, what I would really like to do, is to get these separated, so it's like A, B and C. That's a bit of a formatting thing, so I could do that in the text file if I wanted to. I could actually put a comma between each one and then call them sort of like, if I put a comma in, A would be 1, B would be 2 and C would be 3, and then that would make my answer split line 4. So I could do it that way if I wanted, and if you want to tidy it up a little bit, you can do it like that as well. I might show you that quickly at the end, but for the time being, this bit's working, so let's move on to actually how to get this thing actually running. So get rid of these for a second. So you might want to put a score in and a counter and things like that. You'll need to make sure you place those outside of this while loop, sort of like set those first of all outside the while loop to 0, and then iterate them through and increment them as we go through the while loop. But we'll look a little bit on that in a second anyway. Now, what we want is a while loop here, and we want to say that while split line position 0 is not equal to end, all capitals, do the following. So what I'm saying is that while you haven't found the end, so while this end has not come up, I want you to do the following. And if the end comes up, that will automatically stop the loop, and then we can go for like a game over type thing and maybe print out the scores. So what we want to do here is we want to basically get the user their first question. So we want to print something like, oh, here comes your question. Remember, something like this is going to come up every single time, so there's no point in putting here comes your first question, because it's not going to be the first question every time. So here comes your question would be a good way to start this. And then what we want to do is we want to split line, and we want to actually print the question. So that's going to print the question out for us there. And then this is going to print us out the answers, or the multiple choice answers anyway. And then, before we test it, because I'm just about to test it, what we're going to do is we're going to actually get the user to do like an input here. So we need the user to make a guess. So the guess can be its own variable, equals an input. So the user is going to type this in, and because we've all of these are going to be strings anyway, we don't need to put anything here for what the user is going to put in, because that's automatically going to be set to a string. And we want to just say something like this. One thing I'm just going to put on mine, just to make it a bit more obvious for my users, is type the whole answer. So they don't just type the A, B or C. Now, I can actually change this later on to make it a bit easier for my user, but we'll do that in a second. We'll add a little bit extra validation. So what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to use this piece of code .upper afterwards. Basically, whatever the user types in, it's going to turn it all into uppercase letters, like what I've got here for my answer. So that if they type in Neil Armstrong all lowercase, that piece of code will change it all to uppercase, and it'll match this exactly. So it means that they won't get the answer wrong just for answering it in lowercase or a mixture of upper and lowercase. Let's carry on for a second, because we may come back and just make this a bit easier for our users. Okay, so we want to have something along the lines of, so while the guess is not equal to, the answer, which is split line and 2, so while it's not the same as this, what we're going to want to be doing is basically just giving them another opportunity to have a go. So print wrong answer, and then just give them another opportunity here. Now we can put a little counter on here and things like that, and make it so they only have so many guesses, but that's all extra stuff we can add in at the end. So for the time being, this should work, and it should highlight whether or not the user has got the right answer. And that, yeah, that should be that for that bit. And now what we want to do is we just want, so within the while loop, basically, while they've got the wrong answer, we're going to say wrong answer and give them another opportunity to get the answer right. But if they get it right, so if the guess is the same as the answer, which is split line 2, we're going to say print correct. Ooh, I think I spell it right. And we're going to now give them, we're now going to read the next line. So basically, this line here, contents equals file.readLine, we want to read the next line, and then what will happen is, obviously the next line will be read, it will now loop around because it's got to the end. It realizes it's not at end. It gives this again, and now it takes the next line. Also needs to split the next line as well. I just forgot that. So it needs to read the next line, split the next line, and then it's got the next question all queued up, ready to go round. So if we have a look at this, hopefully it won't break immediately. So here we go, here comes your first question. What year did man first land on the moon? Type the whole answer again, so let's get it wrong for a second. Wrong, and then let's get it right. Correct. Here comes your question. Type the whole answer. So you can see here it's moved on to the next question here. So if I do, let's get the answer wrong first of all. Let's get it wrong again, so just to check who's actually working and picking up the wrong answers. And then if I type this in, obviously bearing in mind that I said that it had to be in capitals, if I type this in lowercase and press enter, it absolutely does change it into capitals because obviously it wouldn't be coming up with correct. And now it's ended because obviously we've hit end, and then that's broken out of the loop, and then there's nothing else underneath it. So I could add a little something else under here, saying something like print and then I could pretty good use a score or something here if I wanted to. So let's actually sort of refine this a little bit and make it a little bit easier. So obviously at the moment the user needs to type in the whole answer, but it could be that you know, it could very well be that they don't want to type in the whole answer, they just want to type in A, B or C. So let's actually give each one of these another position, which is just the right answer. So I've got the right answer here. Now after that comma, I'm going to write the letter for the right answer. So that one is A, comma. The next one, the letter for the right answer for that is A, comma as well. And obviously this now needs another end. I'm just keeping this consistent. I think it only needs the one end at the beginning, realistically, but just to keep every line the same length and things like that. It's good for if you carry on developing and say you want to do something specific with a position. It's good for all the lines to have the same amount of the same amount of positions in them, or else you'll try and access something and you'll be out of range, kind of thing. At the moment, it probably won't matter, but this is kind of just building in a little bit more robustness. So now we can see we've got question in position 0, multiple choice in position 1, and then the answer in position 2, and then the letter answer in position 3. And it seems to be doing that all the way through. Now, what we can do is we're going to say if guess is equal to split line 2, or if guess is equal to split line 3. So basically, this, I don't think I need the if. So all guess is equal to split line 3. We're going to have it as correct. So basically, I'm just now running another validation on here, and my user can now either type in the actual answer, or they can just type in the letter answer. Let's see if this actually works. I don't need this line anymore. And let's have a look. Okay, so let's check if the wrong answers are working. So if that's the wrong answer, that's the wrong answer. We know that 1969 does work, so let's type A, and it doesn't like it, it's the wrong answer. So you have probably figured out what it was wrong well before me. I think I'm a bit blind to this at the minute. Obviously, if I give another option here, I also need to make sure that my while loop is looking at that option. So basically, there's two reasons why the while loop here shouldn't trigger. The two reasons are while the guess is not equal to split line, and while the guess is not equal to split line 3. So basically here I've given two options. I'm saying while my guess is not the same as split line 2, which is the written answer, and the guess is not equal to split line 3, which is the letter answer, trigger these two things to happen. And the reason it kept coming up with wrong before was because we hadn't put this second condition in. So with that, we now obviously can write our second condition in here. So if we do or split line equals, or guess equals split line 3. So now if I've got here, so if the guess is the same as split line 2, or the guess is the same as split line 3, print correct, read the next line, and then split it. So let's have a look, see if this works. Alright, so we're back working here. We've got the first question coming up. Let's check that the wrongs are working. So we know the wrong is working here. Now let's check, does A work? There we go. So A now works, and it rotates round, and it goes to the next question here. So does this one's A work? There we go. Let's just check to make sure the actual answers are working as well. So 1969, that's working, and Neil Armstrong here as well, that's working as well. So now you've got a little bit more flexibility with your users. They can type in the letter, they can type in the full thing, they can do it upper and lowercase or a combination, and it'll automatically do it for you here. Lots of different options for you to get this working. You could also put in here your score variable. So just a little final thing here, you could put a score equals 0 there. You could even do a counter here, counter equals 0. So basically, if they get it correct, you could do score equals score plus 1. And then here at the end, we could print the score. And then if they got it wrong, you could do counter equals counter. Actually, we could do that first of all. Counter equals counter plus 1. And we could keep tracks on that counter. And we could even do a little thing here that says that if the counter is greater than 3, say, we print game over and print their score, and then exit the program. One way of doing it there as well. So we can actually make it so they actually don't get more than 3 goes. Let's see if that works. Wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. Game over, 0 for my score. And let's try it again here. Let's see if I can get one of these answers right. So I've got that right. Now I'll do wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. Game over when I got 4 wrong answers, and they gave me a 1 for my score. So there you go, guys. Lots of sort of tweaking and bits and pieces, but it's a fairly straightforward program. Have a little tweak, have a little look around with that. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you've done to actually improve yours and make yours better than this. Just make sure when you set up that text file, you do it exactly like I've got here. That's big for you. The question, comma, the multiple choice answers, comma, the actual answer with no spaces, comma, the letter answer as well, and then a comma at the end. And then always end it with this end, 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 with all the commas. End, 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 end. Okay? Alright, thanks a lot for listening, guys. I hope this does you well.